Hey everybody, it's Chris here again, and today we're going to be talking something a little bit different than what we usually do. Usually we're talking about the big stuff, the appliances, the outside garden equipment, and today we're going to talk about sort of for the DIY person, the contractor, something that's very important to everybody that's looking to fix something or do a project, and that's power tools. You got to have the power tool. So today we're just going to got a little pad sander here that we can use to talk about a little bit, but just want to take some time and talk about power tools. And there's so many times that people have a tool that's so favorite that may have something wrong with it and it gets discarded. And in most cases, they're easily repairable. And to be honest, in most cases, compared to what new tools cost, the parts are pretty inexpensive. It's just a matter of your time. And really, in all honesty, I don't think too many would have a problem doing most of the basic repairs that are needed. So let's talk about them a little bit. So there's a couple different styles of tools. There's corded tools that have a power cord, of course. And we all know what happens with power cords. They get crimped, they get cut, they get broken, they get old and cracked and got to be torn apart. And that's okay because power cords are easily repaired, they're fairly inexpensive, and they're not bad to do. The other kind of tools that are out there, of course, are, and I just got to get this under here so you guys can see it. Yeah, now we're talking about the battery style. Cordless power tools. These have become more and more popular, and for all the right reasons. We all love the fact that we can take a battery out of the tool and move it onto another tool and have the freedom of not worrying about cords or extension cords or those awkward places we're trying to get into. So this is really becoming some of the most favorite. And we get power battery tools in just about anything from lawnmowers to die grinders to full-size grinders. So there's lots of good stuff happening in the power tool market. But like I said, sometimes you'll get a tool that is just your favorite. Maybe it was handed down to you from someone special in your family or a relative or a good friend, and you just want to be able to keep it and have it be functional. So, for example, this little pad sander, let's just have a look here. This little pad sander has been around for quite a while. It's done a fair bit of work. And as you can tell, it still works. But what if it didn't? Do I really want to throw this out? Or do you want to take a look and see what we could do to fix it? So say the cord was bad or a bearing was bad. In fact, this little guy's starting to get noisy. So there's a very good chance either the top bearing or the bottom bearing is being a bit of a problem. But they're very, very easy in most cases to service. For example, this guy comes apart pretty easy. There's Phillips screws down inside here. And we're just going to take those out. So these are clamshell housings, pretty common in the power hand tool category. They're hard molded plastic. They're designed to hold everything in the proper position so it works properly. And they come apart fairly easy. And if you drop a tool and it breaks, it's really, compared to the price of a new tool, housings are fairly inexpensive. Okay, so I think I've loosened all the screws. Now I just need to separate the housings. And of course I have it unplugged, just for anybody that thought, is he really taking that apart with it plugged in? Now I'm just taking a screwdriver and going to separate these housings. Now, sometimes they'll be a little bit difficult as far as the pad sander goes because we have a base that's holding it all together. So we're just going to persuade it a little bit. Some of these you can actually take the base off first, and then you don't have it being in your way. This one doesn't. Others you'll see that have a model and serial decal, like this one, and it'll be over the seam where the clamshell is, so you'll have to sometimes cut that decal in order to separate the two. You can pull the decals off. I like to keep them on if at all possible because that's where your model serial information is, and it just makes it easier to get it apart. Yeah, it's just the rubber supports for the pad that's holding it up. So you can tell this tool has never been apart before. So it's the rubber legs from the pad sander that's holding it. And we're just going to separate the pad sander. Now it doesn't matter if it's a pad sander, a circular saw, jigsaw, belt sander. They're all a tool that can be easily serviced. And like I say, most parts are still available for even the older ones. All you need is your model number, and you can go to your parts website like eReplacement Parts, put in your model number, find your part on the parts diagram, select it. It's going to give you availability and price. Might even be a video showing you how to change it. And it'll show you availability. You can put it right in your cart, pay for it whichever way you prefer, and it'll be sent right to your home. There we go. Now we're starting to, now we're coming. So now you're starting to see some of the insides. And the space is making it a little bit tricky, but we're almost there. So the pads have rubber feet that go up inside, and those engage into the housing, and that's what's holding this little feller together for us. So I'm having to ease the housing off of those rubber feet, and they've been in there for quite a while. There we go. Now she's coming. Now, if this tool was brand new, this would come apart pretty easy. But this is what you, the homeowner or contractor, will be faced with. Okay. So, here we go. And what do we have inside? We have a power cord. Comes through to a switch that mounts in the front, turns it on and off. And we have our motor, a field coil with an armature inside, a set of brushes. Let's lift that right out of there. Remove that strain relief so we can get that cord out of there. So if anybody that's watching has a favorite power tool, just throw it into the comments. Let us know what your favorite power tool is, what your favorite brand of tool is, if you're partial to one type or another. Usually when you mention a tool and mention a brand type that you're fond of, like a lot of folks will have, you know, they really love DeWalt, or they really love Makita, or they love Milwaukee. You post that online in the chat, and you usually get quite a conversation going. Sometimes a little bit more explicit than others. Those little rubber feet are stuck. So there's our brushes. Try and get it moved around so you guys can see it better. There we go. So brushes are the most common wearing part in a lot of this style of power tool. They're a carbon brush with a spring behind them. The spring that keeps the brush putting pressure where it contacts the armature, so you don't get a lot of arcing and premature burnout of your armature and your brushes. So if you were to take a look at that at some point on your own and find that the brush was either stuck in the tube, was overheated, or was just plain worn out, they're really easy to change. You can, in most cases, order just the brush, or you can get them right within the brush holder themselves and the brush, and they're very easy to change. This little guy does not want to let go, but he will. Bearings are the other things that typically wear on your power tool. And you know when they're getting bad. You can start to hear a difference in sound. You may even start to notice some arcing on those tools that have brushes. And when that happens, they can be easily replaced. There's a few tools out there you require some special gear in order to get a puller in to get the bearing off, but they're still pretty good to change. For those of you who are a contractor and have a lot of power tools, And if you do and you get a lot of work on, then you probably have other people using your tools, and that's a pretty hefty expense, outfitting your trades with tools. They don't necessarily always take the care with them that you might, so you may wind up having to have repairs done fairly frequently. But it's nice to know that you can get the parts, and ordering the parts through us, you're getting the original manufactured part as compared to an aftermarket. Aftermarket parts, yes, are a little bit cheaper, but you will find that in most cases, the quality's not there, or they don't quite fit right. So you're forced to start making adjustments, and that never works out well. So we're almost all apart, but I want to show you the field coil. See if I can get this in the right position for you to be able to see it. There we go. So field coil is exactly what it sounds like. It is just a metal core with a bunch of fine wires that are wrapped around in a specific way, and when it's energized, it creates a magnetic field around the armature, and that's what allows it to go. The current flows through the field, through one brush, into your armature, out the other side of the armature, to the other brush, and that completes your circuit. So if you have trouble, your tool doesn't work, or you've seen it smoke and burning, it's probably these coils that are giving you the trouble. So in that case, you just go to want to replace the field coil, look towards your housing to see if there's enough wear that the bearings may be moving inside, and if it's out of alignment, you'll start to see that your armature has actually been rubbing inside your field coil, and you'll see marks on the armature and the field coil, in which case you either have a really bad bearing or you've got a housing that's worn out. But again, it can be easily changed and not that expensive. So the housing, being plastic, is designed to hold all of this exactly in the right place. If your housing is worn out, usually again from a bearing, or if it's been dropped and maybe it's cracked, and it throws that alignment out. And as soon as that alignment starts to come away from what it should be, you're going to get some scraping sounds, but you're also going to start to see some heavy arcing on your brushes. And worst come to worst, you'll see some smoke rolling out of your housing as the field coil is burning off its insulation. So those are all key signs that that tool should be stopped being used, taken apart, and whatever it is that's wrong, repaired before it gets even more expensive. So there's our bearings. Now you can typically just spin that bearing if it's rough, or if it spins but it's a little noisy, it needs to be changed. You think of how many thousand RPMs these motors are rotating at with those bearings. They need to be in good condition. Bearings is another item you want to make sure you're buying an OEM part. There's lots of aftermarket bearings out there for all different applications. And yes, you can save, again, a little bit of money that way, but I can tell you for sure that using an aftermarket bearing, it's not going to last, it may not fit, and you're just going to wind up having to do it all over again in the near future. Or, worst comes to worst, the bearing self-destructs, the motor binds up, cracks the housing, or takes out the field coil in the process. So don't waste your money by trying to save money. Get the right part, get the OEM part, and then you'll be able to get the same life out of it you did when it was new. Same sort of thing applies to any of the power tools. Be it cordless drill, Now, this guy has its own motor, of course. It's DC, it's powerful, it's the primary part of it is a big metal with a magnetic core, an armature again on the inside, maybe brushed. This one is. You can tell it's brushed because when I shut it off, you can usually see a bit of an arc from the brushes. A brushless motor, you won't see that. Brushless motors are really nice. You don't have the maintenance problem of having to change brushes. I do find, just my own personal use, I find that the brush motors seem to last longer and in some cases have more power. But brushless allows a lot of neat features being added. You're now able to see better speed controls with brushless motors, good torque, and you're also seeing some things being added, especially with batteries, that if the motor's being overtaxed because the battery's low in charge, it'll shut itself down and protect the battery and the motor. So there's some really good features in some of that new brushless stuff. You're also seeing some additions where they're putting some sensors in to go work with the little circuit boards in there, that if the battery gets too low, it'll shut the tool down to protect it, as well as you're starting to see, instead of using a clutch like this one has for how tight to put a screw in, you're getting ones that are automatically set. It can sense when the screw, this is great for the Gyprock fellas that have a Gyprock gun. You can get them now that have the setting designed so that when it senses the torque of the screw is reaching a point where it's just pressing against the paper before it tears it, it shuts down the drive part of the drill. So you can drive screws like crazy and you don't have to worry about the torque or overdriving them. It just automatically zip and stops. And put another one on, zip and stop. It's pretty cool technology that's out there today. And even testing a lot of these, you know, people say, well, how do I know if my cord is bad, aside from, you know, being chewed up and beaten up and stuff like that? Well, power cord's pretty easy to tell. It's basically, especially a 2-wire one, like this one is, compared to a 3-wire. 3-wire just means it has a ground wire as well as your hot and your neutral. And you really only need a multimeter in order to test. So if anybody has a multimeter, has seen these, they're not expensive. You can get them at almost any hardware store. And now this doesn't have all the functions that, say, you know, an electrician's going to carry, but you will find that these work really well. And the easiest thing is they have a setting where you can set the meter so that when you put your leads together, it'll give you an audible signal, so you know you have continuity. So you can, just a matter to test your cord is take your probe. In this case, I can put it across both of them, both the prongs. And I can go down to where the cord is. And that shows I have continuity there. And I can go to the other side of the cord and check the hot side. And I know my cord is good. So if my tool's not running because of it's not the cord, maybe it's the on-off switch. Again, put my probe on my switch on one side, put it on the other. I'll take the terminals off so you can see it better. There we go. One probe on one side of the switch, one probe on the other side of the switch. And there's nothing happening, no signal. So let's put the switch in the other position. Do the same test. And now I have a circuit. Switch is off. It's only doing that because I was touching the probes together. So that was my bad. just touching the terminals themselves, there's no circuit. Flip the switch, and there you go. So you can diagnose the switch with the meter, you can diagnose your cord, you can actually even test the continuity through your armature with your multimeter. Same way. And what you want to do is, you should be able, on these segments of your armature, see if I can bring it up close enough for you to see. So each individual segment is insulated from the other. So they're not touching. So I should be able to now, if you can see the meter, I'll get it out here so you can see it a little better. You can see how the needle is deflecting. So that's showing I have continuity. Now my meter is not beeping because the resistance is high enough through the armature that the battery in these small meters is not strong enough to drive through, but the meter itself is sensitive enough to read it. So if I touch each segment, I can get deflection in the meter, and I know each segment that I'm touching does, in fact, provide a circuit. If I was to touch a segment that nothing happened, the meter didn't move, then I know that this armature is bad. So they're pretty easy to diagnose. You don't need a lot of special equipment, some basic hand tools, and just the will to take it apart and see how to do it. And most of these things we've talked about apply to 99% of the tools that's out there. It's just a matter of knowing how it comes apart. And you can find that information quite often just by simply putting your model number into our website, and it's going to give you a full breakdown, and you'll be able to see exactly what part goes where. So that's how this little pad sander comes. And let's talk about the housing again for a second. These housings are so carefully molded in order to hold the bearing in the proper place, to hold the brushes in the proper place, and especially to hold the field coil in just the right position in line with where those bearings go. So if you get a bad bearing, the bearing will start to run hot, and they'll actually get hot enough that they can start to melt this plastic. And if that happens, it again throws that alignment out of the armature. And when the alignment goes out, you now start getting the armature coming closer to the field in one spot or another. You're going to get a heavier current draw, and you're going to wind up cooking the field coil itself, or worse comes to worse, the actual armature as well. So pay attention to your tool, take a listen to see if it sounds the same that as it should. If it's getting a little louder, then you want to just snap the thing apart, get a look, check these bearings, make sure that they're nice and smooth, check to make sure in the housing that they're tight as to how they fit. And you'll also want to do the same thing with your field coil. The field coil and how it mounts into the tool. When it's in there, it needs to be nice and tight. If you can put that into its proper position and you can actually wiggle it, then you're going to wind up getting a bit of a noise out of your tool that it didn't have before, and you're going to start to again have that alignment between the field coil and the armature start to come out of whack, and that, as we talked about, can cause a lot of problems. So you want to make sure that's nice and tight in there. If it's not, then there's a very good chance you're going to need to replace the housings. All right, so as you can see, what's inside most of your power tools, it's really not complicated, and you know, really anybody, just take your time, take the screws out as you go. Look for some of our videos that'll help you with how to take some of these tools apart and put them back together. And you'll find in most cases, you can replace the parts that it needs, and you can keep that tool that you're fond of a lot longer than you ever thought possible, as compared to running out and having to buy the tool all over again. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention is we're going to have some giveaways in some of our live videos. We've given away a lawnmower recently, a chainsaw, and there's going to be some others coming up during some of our other lives. We've been working in partnership with some of the manufacturers that are helping us and helping you understand the design of their tool and the features that it has and why it might be the right tool for you. So it's a great idea to excuse me. It's a great idea to subscribe to our channel. That way you'll know when those lives are coming up. You'll get some warning ahead of time, because if you're sending some questions during the live, or comments even regarding, you know, your tools or your piece of equipment problems, or however, you know, whatever you have, whether you really like the tool, don't like the tool, have a problem, want to know how to get it fixed, we'll try and answer those questions. But as you put those questions to us, that enters you into our draw, and that will allow you to possibly have a brand new piece of equipment sent directly to your home, just for tuning in. So guys, I think I'm going to let everybody go. I appreciate you taking your time just to have a look and see how easy it is to take some of your power tools apart. Don't be afraid. There's lots and lots of videos that show you how to do it. We've got those part breakdowns for you. We use only OEM parts, so you're going to get the same part the manufacturer used in building your tool that you are so fond of, and at a reasonable price, and it can be shipped right to your home. So there you go, folks. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to let you go and get back to your day, and we appreciate you joining in, and we look forward to seeing you on the next live. Thanks very much.